My name is Whitney. This is Follow the Whisper, and if you have plans to travel to the Big Island of Hawaii with your family in the near future, then this is definitely the video for you. As you can tell right now, I am not in Hawaii. I am actually standing in the newly renovated kitchen of my Pennsylvania farmhouse, but my family and I just returned from an amazing vacation to the Big Island. We spent about 10 days there, and I seriously can't tell you enough how many awesome things there are to do there. Our family consists of myself, my husband, and our 2 young children. They are ages 7 and 9. We are a very well-traveled family. We have been on cruises. We have been in Europe. We did a 7-week cross-country road trip and drove over 11,000 miles. So we've been all kinds of places, and I will tell you that hands down, the Hawaii trip that we just returned from was the best in-the-moment vacation that we have ever had. Mommy's gonna regret this choice and trip over a root, but we're on the trail. There have been lots of times where looking back on a trip was fun in hindsight, but at the moment the trip felt very stressful. Truly, this was not one of those. This was one that we enjoyed in the moment, and I am so glad that we went. I am really excited to spend this video sharing with you some of our favorite things, some tips and tricks for you and your family, and I am hoping that by me sharing our experience, your vacation will be as amazing as ours was. I contemplated filming this video when we were in Hawaii, but ultimately I made the decision to wait until we returned home to film. I wanted to be able to remove myself from the hype and the high, look at things from a more objective viewpoint so that I could give you honest opinions after having some time to think things through and look at costs and things like that. A couple of upfront statements. The Big Island, it's right in the name. It's really big. While I am going to share a lot of things with you today, there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of more options out there. So what I would encourage you to do is watch this video the whole way through, get some ideas for what you might want to do with your family. You obviously know your crew best, whether you are more hiking sorts of people or food experience sorts of people or beach people. Choose the things that are most appealing to you and then do some more research. Find other activities that maybe my crew didn't get to that would suit you and your needs. If you are going to spend multiple days on the Big Island, you will absolutely need a rental car. Even though the island itself is only 100 miles wide, we did a lot of driving. We drove almost 2,000 miles in the 10 days that we were there. And if you have kids who are still in boosters or 5-point harnesses, make sure that you request those things ahead of your trip to save yourself stress when you get there. Just like any of the islands in Hawaii, the Big Island is pretty pricey. When you go to a grocery store, you should not be surprised if a loaf of bread is near $10 or a box of cereal is near $10. We made the decision to stay on the eastern side of the island. The eastern side of the island is not the area where you're going to find all of the resorts and the more touristy, kid-friendly swimming beaches. But what I have also found is that the western side of the island, where those resorts are, tends to be more expensive overall. We also made the decision to cook most of our meals at home while we were staying there, so I don't have a ton of restaurant recommendations for you. I do have a few food suggestions at the end that you won't want to miss, but again, we didn't spend a lot of money on eating out. The Big Island itself, I would say that the majority of the activities are on the western side in Kona, eastern side in Hilo, or in the national park, which is kind of like south central. But what I did is I just looked at a map and sort of divided the island into north, south, east, and west. And that is how I will group my recommendations. I'm going to start on the eastern side of the island, on the Hilo side, because that, as I already mentioned, is where my family stayed. Beach-wise, on the east side, 2 of the most popular beach areas which we visited were the Carlsmith Beach Park and Richardson Beach Park. Carlsmith Beach Park, it is a free park. There is a good amount of parking, but it does fill pretty quickly. There are bathrooms, there are outdoor showers, but one of the drawbacks, in my opinion, is that there isn't really a lot of space to keep your belongings safe. There's lots of little kind of rocky outcroppings, little coves. There's several places that you can get in the water, but your belongings might be very far away. So if you're not comfortable with having your belongings out of sight, that might be a consideration and a drawback for you at Carlsmith Beach Park. Some pluses: the water was crystal clear, very shallow, very calm, and there were a lot of really cool sea creatures right there. You didn't even have to put a snorkel on to see them, honestly.
And we didn't see any, but we have been told that it's not uncommon for sea turtles to come in here in the afternoon. Remember how we just said that we hadn't seen any sea turtles? She spotted one.
The second beach that we visited on the east side of the island was Richardson Beach Park. If you have really young kids and you need quick access to the water, Richardson would probably be the choice for you over Carlsmith. To get to some of the water access in Carlsmith, there are some rocks that you have to step or leap across, and it's not very even. At Richardson though, you can literally just show up, put your stuff down, and get right in the water. Parking and beach access are again free. There are bathrooms, there are outdoor showers, there is a lifeguard on duty. Richardson is a good bit smaller than Carlsmith, so the parking, it was really hard to find a parking spot in that lot. There is a great little area that is sandy with black sand. You can get right in the water there. It's near the lifeguard, and we saw a lot of whales right from the shoreline. So a great little beach, especially in my opinion, if you have smaller children.
Wow, that's so cool. Oh, look at the tail! Did you see the tail, guys?
Did you see it on video?
I saw it on video and in real life.
Another site that my kids and I did while my husband was working remotely one day while we were on the Big Island was the Hawaii Tropical Bioreserve and Garden. Admission there is $30 per adult, $22 for children ages 6 and up, and kiddos 5 and under are free. There's a good bit of parking. I wouldn't say that the parking lot is huge, and it was pretty full when we were leaving, but the bioreserve opened at 9 a.m. We showed up at 9 a.m. and we were the only car in the parking lot at the time. You are allowed to take a stroller down into the bioreserve. However, there is a very steep boardwalk that you have to descend. You are not allowed to use strollers on that boardwalk going down or going up. I can see why. It is pretty steep, and I have been told that when it rains there, that it can be slippery. So if there are health concerns or mobility issues for anybody in your group, that is something that you need to keep in mind.
The car that's lowest temperature.
If you look at my lip, you can see that I'm sweating. It was a little bit of a workout to get back up the boardwalk, but it was definitely worth it. We had a lot of fun.
Another consideration with the bioreserve was mosquitoes, to the point that they actually sell and encourage you to use mosquito wipes if you did not bring your own spray. But even with using the spray, we did see a lot of mosquitoes on us, especially there's a little lake area. When you are standing near that stagnant water, there were a lot of mosquitoes.
Mosquito! Come on!
Apart from the incline, walking around the park itself was simple. Plenty of places to stop and take a break on benches. You're allowed to take your own food and drink in, which was awesome. And if you do take snacks or a lunch, I would encourage you to wait until you get the whole way to the bottom when you are at the shoreline, because there are picnic tables with an amazing, amazing view. Lots of biodiversity. Obviously, it's a bioreserve, so that's kind of the point. I will say that I thought the price was maybe a little bit steep for what we saw, but at the same time, my kids really enjoyed it. I don't know that I would drive like the entire way across the island for this experience, but if you're in the area, I do think that it was something neat to see, and the ocean views that you get when you are the whole way at the bottom, they alone are worth the price in my opinion. A chocolate farm tour was something that we did as a family at Aloha. It was really cool. We did a couple of different farm tours all over the island, and I will say that this one was probably the kids' favorite. Number one, it's a riding tour. You ride on a fancy, almost like limousine version of a golf cart, which my son thought was super cool. It's also covered, so if it's raining or if it's really sunny, you're gonna be protected from the elements. There was a good combination of talking and education and also hands-on experience. You get to see cocoa pods up close. You get to eat cocoa beans right from the pod. You get to have samples of both the chocolate liqueur, which they're not able to even sell in stores, and then you get to try all of the different flavors of chocolate that they make on the farm. That was a really cool experience. Love Aloha was $42 per adult and $12 per child. The child's price, absolutely 100% worth it. $42 a person for an hour-long tour and some chocolate samples. It seem a little bit steep, but the quality of the tour, the things that we learned, and just seeing the prices of the chocolate in general on the island, we felt personally that it was well worth the price. And then the last thing on the east side of the island that I wanted to mention was the Hilo Farmers Market. And if I'm being honest, this probably lands at the bottom of my list of recommendations. I've been to a lot of really cool farmers markets. This one, my impression of the market was just that I was underwhelmed. You can find produce stands all over the island that sell very similar things for probably similar costs. At the end of the day, my takeaway was that if you are going to be in Hilo on a Wednesday or a Saturday, it is definitely worth stopping at the farmers market because you're there already and you can meet some local people who are growing really incredible produce. But I do not think that it is worth driving out of the way to. I think my kids would agree. On the west side of the island, in the Kona area, is the more touristy and resort heavy side of the island. If you are a beach person and you are looking for the vast sandy beaches that you kind of have in your dreams when you think of an island vacation, then the west side of the island is what you are going to be looking for. My family did not get to those beaches because we made a couple of attempts, and every time we attempted it, the surf had closed those beaches. So the lesson here is do not do what we did. Always check to see if the beach that you are planning to go to is actually open that day before you drive across the island 2.5 hours. It is not uncommon on the Big Island for swells to make their way into the shore and make the surf really rough and really high, and for some of those West Coast beaches to close. Two that I wanted to hit on because we did see them, even though we were not able to actually be on them, were Kua Bay Beach and Hapuna Beach. Kua Bay Beach is a free public beach. From all of the pictures and all of the reviews that I looked at, this is an awesome beach, especially if you have little ones, because it is easy to just park and get right in the water. However, I will say parking lot is fairly small and the beach itself is fairly small, so I can see that this one would fill very early. If you are looking for a free beach with great swimming for your kiddos, then I would recommend that you get there very early so that you don't miss out on a parking spot and finding a place to keep your belongings in the sand. So a lesson that we have learned twice now is that you should always check to make sure the beaches are open before you drive across the island. Surf apparently is really high again today, so Hapuna Beach is closed, but we are just keeping the Aloha Spirit and going with it. So we're making the most of it and just thankful that we have the wonderful sights around us as we make our way around the island today. If you are looking for the sandy beach experience, but you don't want to be crowded together with other folks, you want your own space, you want to be able to easily find a parking spot, then another option that you might want to consider is Hapuna Beach. Hapuna Beach is that stereotypical tropical big beach. It is lifeguarded and it is safe for swimming, but this is a beach that you are going to have to pay for. Parking is $10 per vehicle and there is an entrance fee of $5 per person. Like Kua Bay, we were able to get to Hapuna Beach, but we were not able to get into the park because the beach was closed that day due to the rough surf. The third beach that I will mention on the west side of the island is the only western beach that my family was able to visit because of the surf, and that is Alula Beach, which is also known as Dog Beach. Alula Beach is very close to Kua Bay. I want to say that it was maybe 10 to 15 minutes south. So if you ever run into the same experience that we did, where the surf is closing western beaches, but you would like to get to one, Alula might be a beach for you. Or if you know that those beaches are open, but they are very crowded and you just want to get away from the masses of people, Alula may also be a good one for you. Alula Beach is one of the few dog-friendly beaches on the island, so you will see some pups there, but that was kind of a cool experience for our family because we are dog lovers and have 2 Newfoundlands ourselves. This one might be a little tough if you have itty bitties that you are carrying because you do have to walk across some lava rocks. But for us, that was not a problem at all. Our kids were able to do it independently. We were able to do it with our bags of stuff. And we felt that it was really worth it for that minor inconvenience.
So you park over there on those side of the rocks, and then you make your way this way over to the little sandy area.
Once we got across those rocks, the beach was not crowded at all. I want to say there may have been 10 other people there. There was plenty of space. The water was easy to access. The parking lot at Alula is not huge, but we had no problems with that. There is no bathroom, so just keep that in mind. Heavenly Hawaiian Coffee was another farm tour that our family did, and that was on the west side of the island, and we loved it. Adults were $18, children 12 and under were free, and I thought that was pretty darn cool because our kids got to partake in just as much as we did. In the fee for the tour, that includes an hour walking tour where you are learning about the coffee farm, the plants themselves, see the beans being roasted, you get to see some of the machinery. You also get candy samples, you get unlimited coffee samples, and you are able to get a little sample from the coffee bar itself. I thought that this was probably the best priced farm tour that we did.
So we are at Heavenly Hawaiian, and honest to goodness, I don't know that I have ever experienced a more beautiful view in my whole life.
The view itself from the coffee bar, that alone was worth the admission fee in my opinion. You are so high up on the hillside of the island that you can just see forever and ever while you are sipping your delicious coffee. The kids got some really, really good lemonade there. Clark chose a lavender lemonade, and I am telling you that that was some of the best lemonade that I have ever had in my life. We really enjoyed the tour at Heavenly Hawaiian Coffee, and I would 10 out of 10 recommend it. I will say if your kiddos need lots of hands-on entertainment, it may be a little boring for them, but our kids really enjoyed it and they learned a lot. If you make it to Heavenly Hawaiian, there is a little bonus on this side of the island that we just happened to fall upon, and that was a playground. It was awesome. We just happened to drive by it, saw it out of the corner of our eyes, and we were like, hey, let's get out for a stretch break. We have some time to kill. Huge playground, lots of shady cover, fenced in, great place for parents to just kind of sit on a bench around the perimeter and take a break while their kiddos burn off some energy. It was one of the better playgrounds that we've been to in a long time, and we just found it by accident, so that was kind of fun. As far as luau's on the Big Island, most of those are found on the Kona side. The luau that our family chose to attend was called Feast and Fire. It takes place Monday and Thursday evenings at the Outrigger Resort. There are different seating options. There's general seating, and then there is private seating. If you pay more, you're going to be closer up front and center to the stage, and you will be seated just with your group. We decided to pay a little bit extra and have the private seating. The venue as a whole is not very large, so no matter where you sit, you're gonna have a good view of the stage and of the show. But if sitting with just your family is important to you, then it would be worth it to spend a little bit more. Luau's are expensive, I'm just gonna say it, and this one was no exception. For the private seating option that we chose, it was $200 for each adult and $100 for each child. islands. And what that included was some activities in the beginning, bamboo stamping, painting activity. We got to make little wristlet leis. There are no traditional leis given at this luau. When we got there, there were some appetizer sorts of things sitting on the table, and there was an open bar. And then at the Feast and Fire luau, there is no buffet. Things are served to your table. So it was kind of a sampling of all the things that you would expect at a luau. The food was very, very good. The show was very, very good. Overall, I am glad that we did it. My husband and I honeymooned on Maui, and we attended the old Lahaina luau there. That one, in my opinion, was a little bit more impressive. The overall setting felt a little bit more luxurious, whereas the Outrigger Resort is kind of just okay. And I don't mean to say that as a complaint, but it's just true. The show was great. The performers were wonderful. The singers were wonderful. If a luau is an important part of a Hawaii trip and you go into it knowing that you are going to spend a lot of money no matter which luau you choose, I do think Feast and Fire was a good option. Is it worth the amount of money that you're spending? Probably not if you look at it from a very logical standpoint, but it's just part of the experience. We knew that we wanted to see a luau with our kids before we left the island because this was their first time visiting Hawaii. The fun that they had, and for them to see some representation of the Hawaiian culture through dance and crafts, it was worth it for their enjoyment. My favorite thing on the western side of the island, and probably what my husband would tell you was his favorite thing of the entire trip, was night diving with manta rays. It was awesome. There are a ton of different tours that you can choose, a ton of different companies. We went with a small setup called Eka Canoe Adventures. With Eka Canoe, you feel like Moana because you are going out into the bay in the dark on a canoe, just like is in the name, whereas a lot of the other companies are going out on larger boats. With the canoe adventure, you are limited to a small group of people. With our tour, it was only 6 people that got in the water. I think the maximum that they can carry is somewhere around a dozen, whereas some of the other companies that were going out with bigger boats had probably 50 to 100 people. On the Big Island, there is a cool phenomena that happens, and it is in a little bay called Kua Bay. Every evening after dark, large, majestic, perfectly harmless manta rays come in to feed on the plankton. So what these tour groups will do is they will take out these UV light boards, which attracts the plankton, and then the big female mantas come in and feed on them. When you get in the water, you are up close and personal with these mantas, some of them spanning almost 20 feet wide, and it is breathtaking. You do have to be at least 5 years old, and you have to be able to swim without the assistance of a flotation device. There is a lifeguard that goes along with you in addition to the captain who is driving the canoe. She or he will be watching you and your children very closely just to make sure that nobody is showing signs of fatigue or shock. If they have any doubts, they will make you get back in the canoe. What you do is you hold on to the light board that is casting the UV light with your arms, and then you float your feet on a pool noodle. So you don't have to tread water, but you will still fatigue because the water is very cold and it is tiring to hold on to that flotation device. You'll get stiff and sore in your muscles. You do have to make sure that if you are going to take your children along, especially if they are closer to that 5-year-old range, that they have some stamina and some swimming ability. My children did great. My son, the snorkel fit him well. He was able to have his face in the water the whole time and he loved it. My daughter is the younger of my children. She is 7. By the end of the tour, she was pretty done. Not that she was crying or having a meltdown or anything like that. She was done physically just because it was a lot of work. The snorkel did not fit her face well. And so what she would do with the goggles is hold her breath, put her face in to see the mantas for as long as she could, and then look out. And some factors to consider when you are making the choice whether or not you want to do this dive. Water is going to be really dark, really cold, and if you are prone to seasickness like I am, even though it is a very short ride out to the bay and back, you should still take Dramamine just in case. When you are floating on top of the water for a half an hour or 40 minutes or however long your group is out there with the mantas, you probably are going to get seasick from bobbing like I did. Take the medicine, I promise. There's a ton of groups that you can choose from. The parking, no matter which group you choose, is really tough because there are so many different outfits that are taking off from the same place. If you can't find a spot along the road, just keep driving around. Inevitably, somebody's tour is going to be leaving when you are coming, and so eventually you will find a spot. Each adult was $118 and each child was $108. That may sound like a lot of money, but I feel very opposite the Luau. I would have spent more money than this on the dive because of how worth it was. It way exceeded any expectations that I had. Now on to the northern side of the island. One little hidden place that we happened upon was the Macadamia Nut Factory. There's no admission. You can actually go over and see the assembly line of the macadamia nuts coming in and being packaged. They have a little setup where you can see how hard the nuts are in the shells and how much strength and force it takes to crack them. They have a little machine there that the kids can use. They also give out free samples of all of their flavored macadamia nuts. So it's really kind of fun to be able to sample the nuts, see which ones you like and which ones you don't. And this is a spot that has very affordable souvenirs. So if you are in the area, you should definitely stop by. Great owners, super friendly. They also have homemade ice cream there that the kids really loved. It was great. The Waikoloa Petroglyph field. There are spots all over the Big Island where you can see petroglyphs. To kind of simplify what they are basically ancient records of a family's voyages. Hundreds and hundreds of years ago, before there were highways and roads, when families would travel from one location to the other, be it that they were moving or they were trading goods, they would record their travels. Along the way, they would carve into the stone, you know, maybe a symbol that they gave birth along the way, or a symbol that somebody passed away along the way. So it's just kind of a record shown through pictures. It was really important to us to see the petroglyphs somewhere on the island, and I was told that one of the easiest places to see them was in the Waikoloa village. It will feel a little odd because you drive onto the Waikoloa resort, you park right next to a golf course, and you essentially walk through the golf course to follow the trail and to see the petroglyphs. This is a public and preserved area, so don't feel like you are trespassing and don't feel like you don't have permission to be on the trail. If you park at the shops, there's a gas station right by the golf course. You are allowed to park there. If your family wants to walk the entire trail, I have been told that you can walk it in probably an hour or so. But for our crew, we were able to see so many petroglyphs so close to the parking lot that we kind of just got out of our car, explored as long as the kids wanted to explore, and then made our way back and didn't feel like we were missing out on anything by not traveling the whole trail. This area is very exposed to the sun. There is not any shade cover, so I would say bring water, bring hats or sunglasses, or bring reef safe sunblock along with you and make sure that you are applying. The Hawaiian Vanilla Company was another farm tour that our family chose to do. It was really cute because the morning of that farm tour, we had had a full day the day before, and so I said to the kids, you know what, why don't we reschedule that? We've done a lot of farm tours already. If we don't get to it, no big deal. And Clark was like, no, I really wanted to see that. Truthfully, my kids really did enjoy all of the farm tours that we did, and this one was no exception. You have the option of doing lunch and the farm tour or just the farm tour, and we opted to to save some money because the farm tour in and of itself is not that inexpensive. When we arrived, we were able to choose a vanilla flavored beverage and they were delicious. We then took part in what they call an hour-long tour. It wasn't really a tour. You walk down a pretty steep hill to get into one of the greenhouses where they have chairs set up, and at that point you kind of sit for more lecture style classroom setting. There is a golf cart available if anybody in your party is not able to make that walk down or up the hill, but the hill's really short. Our kids didn't have any issue with it. It was kind of neat because the education took place amongst the rows of vanilla orchids. So you got to see the vanilla plants. Similar to the coffee farm tour, if your kids are not into just sitting and listening to somebody talk to them, this may be a little bit boring or not the right thing for them. But again, we learned a ton. And it was really cool because I know that my kids were listening. My son is taking part in a gardening class for his homeschool co-op, and they learned about pollination, and he was telling his teacher all about these orchid plants and how unique they are because they can't be pollinated by anything other than human hands. The price for the vanilla tour, it was a flat fee for everyone. It was $41.50 for all 4 of us. I do understand that because the kids got to enjoy just as much as we did as far as food and drink. When the classroom session is over, you are given a generous scoop of delicious, delicious vanilla ice cream along with vanilla coffee. I did feel like $41.50 might be a little much. The quality of the ingredients though is excellent. We did not regret doing it. It is something that we were glad to have participated in, and honestly that was some of the best ice cream that I have had at least in a long time, if not ever, just because it was so fresh and so heavy on the vanilla. Aaka Falls is probably one of the most visited spots on all of the Big Island, and I will say that this surprised me the most in a good way. All of the pictures that I saw of Aaka Falls were kind of like ho-hum, but when we saw Aaka Falls in real life, it was breathtaking and so, so beautiful. Admission to Aaka Falls is a $10 parking fee and then $5 per person. Definitely worth it. It is a 0.4 mile loop and it is not hard. There are stairs, so it really isn't stroller or wheelchair friendly, but it was easy hiking for us and for our kids. We did not come out of it huffing or puffing or anything like that. I have been told again, like the bioreserve that I mentioned earlier, that if it is wet, that there can be really slick spots. So if you have mobility concerns, just make sure that you are taking your time on the trail because it can be slippery. When you're walking the trail, you feel like you are in Jurassic Park, and I really think that this is an attraction that if you can get to it, if it works for you, you really should try to, regardless of the age of your kiddos. It is very well worth it.
What are we getting?
We're at Tex Drive-In and I'm excited. You can see them.
Yes.
And then the last highlight of the northern part of the island is a place called Tex Drive-In. This is a place that if you are in the area, you've got to go. There is a specific type of donut that is found throughout the island. I believe it is Portuguese, but it is called a malasada. Tex Drive-In makes some really good malasadas. It's kind of cool for starters just because they have an open window where you can actually see the process. They are as fresh can be for as expensive as things can be on the island. We all thought that they were very reasonably priced. A single plain malasada is a little less than $2, and if you choose any of the fillings, strawberry, guava, mango, chocolate, Bavarian cream, I think they were a little over $2 a piece with the filling. Either way, they were delicious. We tried several of the fillings and the plain. It was like eating a pillow of warm, delicious happiness. So if you are in the area of Tex Drive-In, you don't want to miss it.
What are your thoughts, buddy? You got the chocolate filled, and you got the mango.
I'm going regular and plain.
And mommy went regular. They're delicious. Nice and hot, coated in sugar.
And then on to my favorite part of the island, which was the southern section. I will start with the national park because I am a national park nerd, and if you were gonna ask me the one thing that you cannot miss when you're on the Big Island, it would be Hawaii Volcanoes National Park.
We're the national park, guys.
For a standard vehicle pass, you will pay $30 to get into the national park. If you have a 4th grader, kids who are in 4th grade qualify for a free annual national park pass for their entire 4th grade year. So you will have free admission. Well worth the price. How we chose to spend our time at the national park was driving Crater Rim Drive to see the Kilauea Lookout and then hiking the Kilauea Iki Trail with our children.
So we are about ready to hike down there. That is the Kilauea Iki Crater. And I don't know, I'm gonna zoom in here. I don't know if you can see the little ants down there. Those are people, and that is soon gonna be us. Ready?
It's a crater.
The Kilauea Iki Trail is a 3.5 to 4 mile hike total, and I will say that it does require some basic physical fitness, but if you and your family are adventurous and you can make a hike of that distance work, and you really should, it's so cool. You start up at the top of the crater around the rim, and then you work your way down into the crater itself. So it feels like at times that you're in the rainforest, and then when you're on the crater, it feels like you're walking across the moon. It is an experience like none other I have ever had, and I'm so glad that our kids were able to do this. You should expect the hike to take anywhere from 2 to probably 3.5 hours. We really booked it and pushed ourselves and were able to finish it between 1.5 and 2 hours, but you do want to make sure that you have enough time for this hike because it is a little bit time consuming, and I would recommend that you follow the trail as it is intended, which is in a counterclockwise direction. That, in my opinion, is easier physically. We saw folks doing it the other way and having to climb up stairs at the end, and they were really tired. If you do it counterclockwise, you take stairs down into the crater and then you make your way back up on switchbacks, which was a lot easier and more manageable for our kids. You will know if you're going in the correct direction because there are signs along the way that are numbered. If they're going in the correct order, then you are going the easier way. If you want to use a really cool interactive national park tool to make the walk more fun and exciting for your kids, go on to the national park's website and look for the Kilauea Iki Trail Guide. It's kind of a cool pamphlet that gives you history and some really neat things to look for when you are walking the trail. Make sure, because this is a longer and more vigorous hike, that you bring plenty of water, bring snacks, and make sure that you are wearing a hat, sunglasses, and reef safe sunblock. It's very sunny and you are very exposed when you're in the crater. One cool thing about the Kilauea Iki Trail is that you can very easily access the Thurston Lava Tube from the trail. It does not really add a whole lot of distance. It will save you time later because parking at the Thurston Lava Tube is very limited. Small parking lot, it's one of the most popular things in the entire park. If you just build that into the Kilauea Iki Trail, you'll save yourself the headache of trying to find a parking spot later. But the lava tube is really cool to walk through. It is a little bit tricky because we lost our footing 1 or 2 times. So if you're holding a little, just make sure that you are taking your time and give your eyes time to adjust to the darkness. And then at the Kilauea Overlook, make sure that you give yourself time to just really take in the panoramic view. There are some really cool steam vents there and you can see for miles and miles. It's breathtaking and reminded me a lot of the Grand Canyon. Punalu Beach is a beach that you will not want to miss. It is a beautiful black sand beach. In terms of a lot of the other beaches, it was pretty big. There were some bathrooms there. At the time we were there, they were closed, but typically there are bathrooms available. There is a lifeguard on duty, and the coolest thing about Punalu Beach is that this is a resting spot for sea turtles. Usually every day in the afternoon hours, huge sea turtles come up from the ocean to warm themselves on the sand. It is believed that the warmth of the sand helps them to digest the red seaweed that they eat. And the coolest thing is that if you just put on a pair of goggles, you don't even need to wear the snorkel, just put on a pair of goggles and stick your head in the water like we did, you will be swimming with probably a half dozen sea turtles. It was so cool. The first day that we went, when I saw the turtles laying on the beach, I started crying happy tears.
Mommy's crying. Checking out the sea turtles napping on the beach.
The southernmost point of the United States is also found, obviously, on the southern side of the Big Island. I thought that the southernmost point of the US was in Florida off of the Keys, and that is the southernmost point of the continental US. So if you would like to say that you actually stood in the southernmost point of the entire United States, then you can drive down to the southernmost point. There's no entrance. It's kind of just a spot where you can stand and get some pictures and say that you were there. It's big enough that even though other cars were there, we weren't really with other people. And it's just a really cool vantage point of the island. We were fortunate enough to travel to the Big Island in January, which is some of the prime whale season. They say from like roughly November to April, with January and February being the peak months. The humpback whales migrate down from Alaska to Hawaii to get to warmer waters where they can have their babies. And we got to see a lot of whales breaching, especially at this spot. The drone footage that my husband captured of the mama and the baby, that was taken at the southernmost point of the United States. If you have several days to spend on the Big Island, then I would recommend that you get to all of the areas that you're able to. Try to hit up a lot of the spots that we mentioned, north, south, east, and west. If you only have one day on the Big Island and you would like me to tell you what I think you absolutely need to get to, I would say do the southern side. Spend time doing the national park and hike Kilauea Iki. Get over to Punalu Beach where you can see the sea turtles and you can swim at a really cool Hawaiian beach, and then hop on down to the southernmost point of the United States so that you can say you were there. If you're able to do that and you have time to swing up to Aaka Falls, make it happen. But if that is too much, just do that little triangle like I said. National Park, Punalu, and southernmost point. Those were things that I definitely would have been sad if we didn't get to. Couple other quick food things. Make sure you get Hawaiian shaved ice before you leave the island. We tried a couple. Our favorite was Ululani's over in Kona. If you're looking for a good poke place, there is a place called Da Poke Shack, also in Kona, that we give thumbs up. That was delicious. And then before I leave you, one of the hugest things that I can encourage you to do would be to talk to the locals. Speak to people who live on the island and live and breathe the island and ask them for places to see and things to do. Of all of the beaches that we got to, the coolest and most special, I can't even tell you a name for because it doesn't have a name. When we got to the end of our trip, we talked to the Airbnb host that we were staying with and we said, hey, we had such great weather, we got everything done and we have a few buffer days. Is there anything else that you can recommend to us? And he had us hike 1.5 miles over lava flows from 2018 to find a newly formed black sand beach that we literally had entirely to ourselves. There was not another soul there. It was the biggest beach that we had been to and it was beautiful. Apart from the fact that the surf was very rough there and it's not a swimming beach, we had so much fun wading and just experiencing such a beautiful and breathtaking part of Hawaii by ourselves. It was something I'll never forget. 15 years ago, my husband and I made a trip to Hawaii as newlyweds and honeymooned on Maui, and I cannot tell you how special it was to return to Hawaii and experience the Big Island as a family. It was such a full circle moment, something that I will treasure forever and never forget. I really hope that you can see and feel the magic that we experienced and that some of our tips will help you experience the Big Island in a wonderful way with your family. Thanks for being here.